Okay, so the tool that we're going to use is called the Pathfinder, and if you're in the like Photoshop desk mode, and my desk has gotten a little messy, so I'm going to go back and I'll reset it. So you go right up here and you say like Photoshop, and that gives you your navigator, your color panel, your appearance, and layers. And then along this side there's some good things. The one we're going to use today is Pathfinder, this one. So you can click so that that's open. And what Pathfinder does is it uses more than one shape to create new shapes. So I'll kind of just go through it and show you what it does first, and then we'll kind of play around with how you can make a cool motif using that. So first off, I'm going to just open up the shape tool. If you hold down and then hover over the tear off, you can pull the little shape panel out so that it's easy to get to. But I'll go ahead and I'll use just a few shapes. I'm going to hold shift so that I make shapes that are symmetrical. But maybe I'll use a circle to cut into a rounded rectangle. And so what you do basically is you overlap two shapes. And I'm going to go ahead and just so that you can see the way it cuts, I'm going to put different colors in them too. So I'll have black. We'll do black strokes and different colored fills. And remember now, for filling, we're not using a paint bucket to fill shapes, right? You select the shape and then you pick the fill, which is the inside part, or the stroke. So whatever box is on top, it's going to let you change. You can also get to that stuff up here. So right now I have a white fill on the circle. If I want to change it, I can click and get to my swatches and I can choose a different fill. If I wanted to change the stroke, I could do that here. I can also do that here under appearance. I have my fill and my stroke. So all different places to accomplish the same thing. Alright, now I'm going to grab them both and I'm going to copy so I have more than one by option dragging. Just like in Photoshop. Fast way to copy. And I just wanted more than one so that I can show you the different tools. You can try this out too if you want to. Just copy your shapes. As long as you have two that overlap, it'll work. Okay, so the very first one is the one on the far left, upper left of the Pathfinder tool with the two shapes selected. This doesn't work with one shape. You have to have two. Also doesn't work if the shapes are grouped because the computer sees a group as a unit of one. So it's got to be ungrouped. Now I can go and click the first one, which is Unite. So what that does is it gets rid of this part of the path, the rounded rectangle corner and the circle little pie shape wedge, and it draws one shape out of it. So you could make some cool shapes. Say you were doing a logo and you wanted an arch shape. You could combine a circle with a rectangle to get an arch. Yeah? Yes, Pathfinder's this one, and then it's this upper left button. So that's Unite. Next one is minus front. And it does just what it sounds like. The shape that's on top will get cut out into the shape on the bottom. So it's kind of like you're pressing a cookie cutter into some cookie dough or something. So you're removing a section with using the front shape as your cutter to cut out. Now with these buttons, you don't want to keep clicking them a bunch because if you do, you're going to make a weird compound shape that sometimes can be really hard to deal with. So just click once, trust that it worked. And it will as long as you have two things selected. The third one, I'm going to grab them both. And notice to grab them both, I could shift click on each one or I can just draw a box around the two that I want. As long as you touch some section of both, it'll grab them both. So third one we'll cut out, leaving just the intersection. The fourth one will cut out the intersection so that it's no longer there. This one, the fifth one, is probably the one that's going to be the most helpful for doing your little motif. And I'm going to say that it's the most helpful just because it doesn't remove any of the shapes. It just cuts them. It's like you're taking scissors and you're snipping anywhere they overlap. So I'll grab both, and then I'm going to use divide, this lower one. And those are the main ones we're going to use for this. So divide now will let me change the colors. Now when you divide, it's grouped. So if you want to change the color, you've got two choices. One, grab the shape you want to change with your white arrow. So to do that, I'm going to deselect first by clicking outside the shape. I'm going to grab the white arrow, and then I'm going to click on the one I want to change, and then I can change it. Or another thing I could do is ungroup the shape. So if I grab them all and I go to Object and I say Ungroup, now it's no longer a group. So I could easily, with the black arrow, pull them apart. I could move them all around separately. I could change them separately. Okay, so I've taken two shapes and I've made three shapes out of it. Now the trick here is to come up with some kind of an interesting design that uses the little pieces. And in the one that I demoed, you can kind of see what I did. This was like when I made this, I actually used a circle or a polygon, and then I cut circles out of it. So you can kind of just play around until you get something. Just experiment. If you want some ideas, just watch and I'll play around with some different things. So I could take these little guys and I could copy them so I have more than one, and then I could flip them. So I could go to Object, Transform, and Reflect. Reflect is like a it's like a flip horizontal or a flip vertical, but once you click it, then you say what you want. So horizontal is going to turn it upside down, or vertical is going to just flip and give me a mirror image. But I could start to do some interesting things with that. And I could even overlap those. Oh, if you want to align things, by the way, too, connected to Pathfinder is the Align tool, and that lets you line things up. You'll also see it up here when you have more than one shape selected. But you can do things like, I could align these two to the bottom so that they were nice and straight. And the one I would pick is the one that has the rectangles with the line going through the bottom one. It's this one, it's the top right. Now these are nice and straight. Then I could divide again. And now I have this new shape. So, you know, there's all kinds of, like, you can just keep overlapping various things and you can cut chunks out to make something new. So then maybe I would go in and copy that, and I could flip and maybe make one going the opposite direction. And I really just need enough of a grouping that I have a little motif that I like the looks of. So, you know, you guys can kind of decide what you like. You could take some of the shapes, make them really small to fit in places, and then copy and flip them. It's up to you. But take a little time on this so that you get some nice ones.
Oh, wait, right here. Like that? Like right here? You just do it like that?
So once you do a divide, they are going to be grouped. If you want to ungroup first, that might be the easiest way to deal with them, doing things with them. Or you could use the white arrow. You can put gradients inside these, or you could always do solid colors, whatever you like. And you can adjust their order in the layer. So remember, layers in Illustrator are not like Photoshop Illustrator or Photoshop layers. They're like folders that hold paths. And the paths are any little shape that you make. Any little tiny line that you make is going to show up as a path in that layer. So toggle the layer open. You can drag and drop the shapes in any order you want. Each thing you make is going to show up on top of the last thing that you made. You can also go to Object Arrange, and you can say Bring to Front, which is going to pop it to the top of the layer, or Move to Back, which is going to bring it down to the bottom of the layer. So that's a way to rearrange what you've got. And then if you want, you can do things like drop shadows also. To remove things, if you make stuff you don't like and you want to start fresh, just select and hit delete to delete it. I would make all your motif in the same layer. No reason to put them in separate layers.
Once we have it.
And then if you have shapes coming together so that they're, more than one shape, but that you want them to be the same color, you can always combine them using that Unite button. Button used to be called Add, but they changed the name of it. If you want to change more than one color at a time, or more than one shape, you can always shift click to grab the different ones. And then you have a swatch library down in the bottom of where your color is. If you click into swatches, and in there you've got all different kinds of color schemes. So you could always open those up and get some interesting color combos that are, you know, might be nicer than the colors that are already made in your swatches. Of course, you can always pick your own, make your own colors too. Once you have a color that you like, you can quite easily go in and save it into your swatches by dragging that color in there so you have it. And then if you want to do any kind of drop shadow, that's under Stylize. It's an effect. And the default drop shadow is pretty far away from the object. I usually adjust it to 0.01 instead of just 0.1. But you know, do what you like on it. That's a kind of a closer drop shadow. That'll add some dimension to your shape. You can really make these as complicated or as simple as you like.
How do you do drop shadow?